If you're here, something in you is already shifting. You might feel a quiet ripple beneath the surface, a flicker of curiosity, a nudging question about how we think, who we are, and what it means to live well. Today, let us step back 2.5 millennia into the heart of classical Greek philosophy to meet two figures who changed the way we look at ourselves and the world. Socrates and his gifted student Plato. Imagine Athens, the bustling city-state on the edge of the Mediterranean, its marketplace alive with voices debating politics, art, and justice. But amidst all this chatter, one man stands apart. Socrates, not a writer or a politician, but a thinker who believed that true wisdom begins with recognizing our own ignorance. SFX, city_ambience. 3 Socrates never recorded his teachings. We know him through the conversations and writings of others, especially Plato. But what defines Socratic philosophy is not a doctrine, but a method, a way of questioning that. Pulls us deeper into ourselves. The Socratic method is an invitation, an intimate dialogue aimed at uncovering contradictions in our beliefs. It is in essence a mirror held up to our assumptions. Why does this matter? Because so often, we assume we know something simply because it feels true or because everyone agrees. Socrates thought this was the greatest obstacle to knowledge. The unexamined life is not worth living, he said. Could it be that the life you're living now is quietly unexamined? What if the maze of your thoughts holds hidden doorways, locked only by unchallenged beliefs? Think for a moment. How often do you accept ideas without asking why? When was the last time you questioned the foundation of your values or the source of your opinions? Socrates' approach isn't about defeating others in argument, but about gently dissolving the fog of certainty that blinds us. Yet, there's a paradox here. Socrates claimed to know nothing, yet he pursued wisdom relentlessly. Isn't that ironic? To embrace ignorance as the beginning of wisdom challenges our deepest intuitions. We are raised to believe knowledge is accumulation to fill our minds with facts and answers. But Socrates invites us to unlearn, to admit the limits of our understanding, and to welcome doubt as a friend rather than an enemy. What would happen if you acknowledged the edges of your knowledge today? What new questions might emerge from the cracks of your certainty? Now, Plato enters the scene, a young man drawn to Socrates' magnetic pursuit of truth but eager to shape. In his own expansive vision, Plato founded the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. But his legacy lies mostly in the dialogues he wrote. These writings give voice to Socratic inquiry, but also develop ideas beyond their teacher's reach. Plato's philosophy introduces us to a realm of eternal, unchanging truths, the famous theory of forms. According to Plato, the objects we see in the material world are mere shadows or reflections of perfect, abstract forms. For example, every beautiful thing participates in the form of beauty, but only in the intangible realm do we find beauty itself in its purest essence. Imagine standing in a forest at sunrise, the golden light filtering through the leaves. The beauty you see is transient and unique to that moment. Plato would say your experience points to a deeper reality, a universal form of beauty that exists beyond time, perfect and constant. This idea invites a profound question. If true reality is not what we see or touch, then what is the purpose of our earthly experiences? Are we learners, seekers of the invisible, the eternal? Plato uses the allegory of the cave to explore this tension between perception and reality. Prisoners chained inside a dark cave see shadows flickering on the wall, shadows cast by objects behind them they cannot see. These shadows are their reality, limited and distorted. But if one prisoner is freed and steps into the sunlight, he discovers the world beyond shadows, shapes, colors, and the sun itself, which Plato equates with the form of the good, the highest truth and source of all knowledge. What if your mind is that prisoner? What shadows do you mistake for reality? And what light waits just beyond your fear or comfort? SFX, wind_chimes. Two Plato-esque dialogues often unfold as conversations, not lectures. This style invites us into participation, reminding us philosophy isn't a solitary pursuit, but a shared journey. His Republic imagines a just society ruled by philosopher kings, leaders who know the forms and rule not by power or wealth, but by wisdom. It's an ideal, perhaps unreachable, but one that illuminates the ever-present struggle between knowledge and ignorance, justice and injustice. Let us reflect. How do your beliefs about justice shape your life? Who governs the kingdom within your mind? The tyrant of fear? The philosopher of reason? Or a restless mixture of both? Plato also grappled deeply with the soul, proposing it has three parts: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. When these parts are in harmony, we experience the good life. But when desires or anger dominate reason, the soul falls into conflict and chaos. Can you identify these voices inside? When is your reason quiet? And when does your appetite or spirit take the lead? What might it mean for you to bring these aspects into balance? Interestingly, many of us carry fragments of Socratic and Platonic thinking without naming them. The inner tensions you feel between what you think you know and what you're willing to question. Follow in this ancient lineage. Your search is their search. Taking their insights seriously today means returning to the practice of honest inquiry and courageous self-examination. It means pausing before reacting, asking, why do I believe this? And what am I not seeing? Not to dismantle your world, but to rebuild it more consciously. The path of Socrates is one of humility. It's a step away from the noise of certainty toward the silence where true understanding begins. The path of Plato is a reaching forward, imagining what lies beyond, and daring to picture a reality illuminated by wisdom and goodness. This is not abstract or distant philosophy. It's a hand extended in the dark, a companion's voice guiding you toward the light within. If you're ready to listen, the questions remain. What shadows in your life are you mistaking for truth? What forms of beauty, justice, or good are you willing to seek beyond appearances? And how might your own examined life become a quiet revolution? Starting now. SFX, heartbeat_soft, 3 inches the end. Perhaps the greatest lesson from Socrates and Plato is that philosophy is not a treasure to possess, but a journey to live in endless dialogue between the known and the unknown, the self and the world. So, I want to tell you what to do. I'll help you see what is already happening inside you. There's a question waiting to be asked inside your silence. Will you dare to ask it? SFX, wind_bell. 4. And in that question lies the beginning of all wisdom. To deepen our understanding, let us examine Socrates' approach in more detail, focusing on how his method challenges the way we typically think. When Socrates engaged someone in conversation, he didn't offer ready-made answers. Instead, he asked persistent questions, taking you to a place where your own beliefs begin to unravel. This process is not comfortable, it's unsettling, even painful, but it strips away superficial certainty and compels you to confront the roots of your ideas. What if this process mirrors your inner resistance to change or discomfort? Why do we so readily cling to our narratives? Could it be that the stories we tell ourselves provide a fragile sense of security, even if they no longer serve us well? Socrates invites us to hold that security lightly. He encourages an attitude of radical openness, one where the desire to know truth outweighs the fear of losing familiar ground. Addressing the core of Socratic inquiry is the principle of elenchus, or refutation, which is less about defeating an opponent and more about buying space for reflection. When we realize a belief contradicts itself or fails to withstand scrutiny, we face a moment of disorientation. But from this disorientation arises the possibility of authentic insight. What belief in your life might be ripe for such examination? Are you willing to entertain the possibility that it could dissolve? SFX, soft_wind, 3 Plato. Carrying forward and expanding on Socrates' method, transforms inquiry into a vision. His dialogues aren't just philosophical exercises, they are theatrical spaces where ideas breathe, conflict, and evolve. The dynamic interplay between Socrates and his interlocutors reveals not only the content of their ideas, but their emotional and psychological investments. Consider the dialogue Meno, where Plato explores whether virtue can be taught. The conversation pivots on whether we learn virtue anew or recall it from some prior knowledge, a concept hinting at innate knowledge or the immortality of the soul. This introduces the idea of anamnesis, the soul's recollection of truths glimpsed before birth. It paints a picture of life as a journey to rediscover forgotten wisdom rather than gathering fact from scratch. Could your moments of insight be echoes of forgotten knowledge? What if the restless questions stirring your mind are signposts pointing toward deeper truths you've known but failed to recognize? This shift from seeing knowledge as external information to something internal and remembered invites reflection on how education and learning function. Is true learning about memorizing facts, or is it awakening dormant parts of ourselves? Plato would nudge you toward the latter. Let us travel further into Plato's intellectual landscape with the Symposium, which explores love in its many forms. Here, love transcends the physical and enters the realm of the soul, prompting an ascent from physical attraction to the appreciation of pure beauty itself again, the form of beauty. Do you recognize in yourself this yearning for something beyond fleeting pleasures? When does love become more than desire? Plato presents love as a bridge from the temporal to the eternal, a powerful force that motivates the soul's ascent toward truth. Socrates and Plato open a door to a world where philosophy touches the core of human existence. Ethics, beauty, love, knowledge, and the self. But their legacy is not only in ideas, it's in practice. Philosophy isn't an ivory tower pursuit, but a lived art, a way of attending to life's mysteries with reverence and rigor. SFX, come_verse_ambience. For one practical takeaway from their teachings is the importance of cultivating self-awareness through dialogue, not just with others, but with your own thoughts. How often do you pause and interrogate your impulses, your judgments, your fears? Could this practice bear fruit in the form of healing or transformation? Their work also invites us to engage with the world's complexity without succumbing to cynicism. Even in a world shadowed by ignorance and injustice, the pursuit of wisdom remains an act of hope, of trust in the human capacity for growth. If you feel overwhelmed by inner conflict or uncertainty, know that these are not signs of failure, but invitations to begin anew. The tension between what you think you must be and what you might become is a fertile ground. Socrates and Plato show us how to tend this ground with humility, curiosity, and courage. Now, a question for you. How might you, in your own way, become a philosopher of your life? What practices could mirror Socratic questioning and Platonic vision in your day-to-day experience? Could it be that philosophy is less about knowing answers and more about living questions deeply? SFX, waves_gentle. 3. As you carry these thoughts forward, remember that the dialogue continues. Your mind is both the cave and the prisoner, and also the seeker stepping into the light. Philosophy, at its core, is companionship, the companion who reminds you that you are not alone in your struggle to understand, to live well, to be free. Let the ancient voices of Socrates and Plato reverberate within you as gentle guides on the path. They offer not a fixed destination, but a luminous horizon toward which your soul can turn. And in this turning, the possibility of transformation wakes quietly, persistently, with the patient rhythm of a heart learning to listen. SFX, soft underscore wills underscore echo. For this is the art of the examined life. This is how a questioning mind becomes a free one. Are you ready to keep asking? Because the greatest philosophers, Socrates and Plato, among them never stopped. And neither must we. SFX,